information.
Yeah.
No, this is heavy work. He's gonna write this.
What's it recording?
There we go.
Thank you.
That worked.
Yeah, it's pretty crafty to be able to,
Good morning.
Their report.
in the
Morning.
regulations.
Let's see
We're
who's
very
here.
regulated in
Um,
terms of
here.
our advertising.
Oh, really?
Oh, very.
Yeah, we know
It's
that.
Emma,
Know that.
Oh, yeah.
the event.
They got it bought.
at,
And they got to buy, yeah.
The African,
Bunch of regulations.
tax. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And she said she was coming
What's the quorum?
to.
It's always a quorum unless you
Seven.
ask.
Aware of that.
Well, quorum is 5, I believe.
Perfect. We're okay.
So we're good.
Hmm.
And Kristen might come in on Zoom, so if you,
Mhm.
since I'm not looking at it,
If she pops up,
if she pops up there,
Okay. we'll tell you.
I didn't know whether we would have Zoom or not, so.
Mhm.
Anyway. Here we are. We have a pretty simple agenda. I wanted to, it seems like a really long time ago because I spent a week in St. Lucia and it was so far away that, I lost track of most everything. Including sending out a reminder for the meeting, so.
That's why you go.
That's why you go.
That's right.
That's why you go. And I had all my grandkids there and it was really fantastic, so. But the agenda is, see if we can actually bring it up. We have two items on the agenda. And I believe that it is, one, we want to just, we haven't met since we had our meeting with legal. And I'm struggling to remember that meeting. So, and then the other is that it was my thought, and I haven't confirmed this with Suzanne yet, but my thought that we should start thinking about a request for proposals for a conservation assessment. We
Mhm.
have money.
Yeah.
Starting in
Write it now. so that we can
July.
Give it. Mhm.
and so, and my understanding, and I might be wrong, I had a conversation with Christine and I think we can use that money for the whole project, not just for the city's part of it.
Mhm.
I will confirm that, but nevertheless, I think it would be a good idea to start creating a request for
Data that we
proposal.
need, yeah, right.
So, and that has to go out from the city.
Mhm.
But, so those are the two things I want to talk about today, I guess. And if there's anything else, always the schedule, and Alan struggled with creating a schedule of what needs to be done, but these are two things that need to get that happen on it.
I have something to report, even though he's not here today. Super fan George Dumas became the first to donate to the yet to be entity.
Terrific.
Really?
Thank you,
That's great.
George.
How much?
I'm not sure he wants me to tell you that
Okay.
in a public meeting, but
Oh, okay,
Fair.
that's fair.
How many zeros are before the decimal point?
Thousands.
some.
So, well, that's great. Thank you,
That
George.
is great.
I'm sorry that he's not here.
Mm.
And,
I can also report on one thing. Somebody at SPNEA, Historic New England, when I asked about other organizations that had gone through this kind of a process before and maybe created some sort of organization to do these things, put me onto this woman named Lisa Anderson, who is now at the Cooperstown, New York, Baseball Hall of Fame, but before was in Mesa, Arizona during the great impressions of 2008 or so, I think. And realized that her nonprofit and a dozen others were probably all going to go under if the economy stayed the way it was. And so she brought 13 different organizations into a collaborative to do various assigned tasks so that we weren't all duplicating one another in every single of those
That's
organizations.
great.
And I asked about the legal structure, and she said, it's a collaborative, it's not its own legal organization. It was a very contractual thing. For their participations, they got certain things that they needed, but not everything. Anyway, she's happy to talk to other people. She's happy to consult if we ever needed it.
Mhm.
So I've got that information for you right
Great.
here. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
But it's not an actual,
Right, they
it's not a
decided
501c3 or
against-
anything
they
like that.
decided against making it its own thing.
Mhm.
It's a consortium of
Yeah.
all 13 of those organizations on very specific things that that organization needed, but didn't need all 12 other ones.
How do they fundraise?
I think grants, I don't know.
Separately.
Organization.
Yeah, probably individually, yeah. I think what they did was they really figured out who's doing what in the larger community and tried to eliminate duplication so that some people shifted their basic purpose to do this part, but not necessarily these three others, since those were all covered by somebody else. And they also shared a lot of collection stuff. They got rid of a lot of stuff because why does everybody need great grandpa's buggy or whatever? And that seemed to help a lot too. Anyway, she's interesting to talk to. One can hear by talking to her why she left town. She's tough, but she asks a lot of the right questions, and she has a very low regard for most museums, which I thought was useful.
Did she create a physical space?
I don't think they did. I think between the 13 organizations, they had enough space. It's just, why should each one do the same thing as the other one? And I think collaborate in some way on stuff. So you'd have to ask her more. It was hard to sort of get, but it's been published 2 or 3 times by SLH, by National Trust. One should look up the bibliography and read it through. And if we think we like it, I think she'd be worth talking to. Especially the legal stuff. But it's very contractual kind of thing. This group needs this, but it doesn't need all 17 of them. It's interesting.
That's great. That's very interesting. Any
In a way,
other?
we're already doing some of that,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah, so I don't, I just think, she went through it
yeah,
and
yeah.
they seem to have survived. It's worth at least talking to her
Yeah,
and reading what was said. She said she had the biggest problem she had was getting other museums to realize that this was a useful thing,
yeah,
that they were all sort of stuck in their own hands that, oh, but this is our town and we only do
yeah,
a very small town. So it's
right. Well, there's
a surprise.
my stuff, your stuff.
You got it.
We have it city stuff.
Yeah, and adding the city is a
And some of these
complexity.
museums were local government, so in that 13 organizations that
Yeah.
included public as well as private stuff.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Tell me her name.
Her name is Lisa Anderson. And you want her phone number?
Yeah.
Area code 602-689-7808. She must have a cell phone because that area code is for Arizona. And she's now in New York, but she's still got her phone number.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Vince, is there even some kind of vague
a summary outline of what happened with the legal meeting? then somebody else can-
Yeah, Chuck, can you, and
Where are we with legal?
I'll try a little bit of it. I don't want to try to put too many words in people's mouths. We're not completed yet.
Right.
I think we're looking at it from the point of view of an organization that's funded, that's formed by the group that we have, that we've already talked about, the museums, et cetera, we talked about. And it looks like it's a 501(c)(3). But we don't have an expert on that in place yet. And then Trevor is still looking for that.
Mhm.
A lot of time was spent when we had our last meeting, talking about it from the city's point of view.
Mhm.
Which we have not done here, I think, too much. And that city point of view, has an example in Salem, New Hampshire. Where they started, some people started off trying to do an archive. Didn't work, and the city came in and took over, and he was gonna get more information about that.
Mhm.
The way we had left it was that he was looking for experts. To talk about the actual 501(c)(3) structure with membership organizations. I think that's where we're at. And understanding clearly that what we're gonna be doing is transactional business with that organization. For reasons of independence, et cetera, from political forces. And if you have contractual relationships, the political forces don't come in during the middle of the contract.
Mhm.
But that, we don't have any definite definition yet. Trevor's looking, is that his name?
Mhm.
Trevor's looking, he's a bright young guy, he knows some people in his field. And we're gonna let him run with the ball, so to speak,
Mhm.
to figure out the best. At least to suggest the best person to hire, maybe. To put that together. I got that.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. How frequently are you guys gonna meet?
we have another meeting scheduled. I'd have to look at it, see where it is. You know,
In the next week or two?
yeah, like once a month, you know, I think,
The key is finding the expert.
Yeah,
yeah.
Mhm.
always is.
The other, I think. Piece that's important to note about the last
Yeah, yeah.
meeting we had is that Linnea was at the meeting, so Strawberry Bank was
Good.
represented, which was great.
And she's in. I mean, no, that was we
Question.
needed that kind of high level
Mhm.
that we've had from the other organizations.
Yeah.
Not to diminish your,
Well, no, it's her
Position.
responsibility, isn't it? to be blamed.
You're-
Oh,
Thank you, Tom. For acknowledging.
One of the things that she mentioned, which was a good point, is her concern was as CEO of an organization. Is this new entity gonna be competing with her ability to fundraise
what a surprise.
from the
Always.
same resource?
Always.
And so what we talked about was structuring it in a way so that. Whatever funds were needed from Strawberry Bank. It would just be a line item in their budget, and it would be the same for us.
yeah.
And so the entity would go for its own grants,
Mhm.
and then. And then whatever, for lack of a better word, condo fees. Were due from each organization would just be a line item in their budgets.
She mentioned that she'd gone to the meeting. And that she held her own, but legal things aren't really her forte. So, you know, I think there's a couple lawyers on the board, so I don't know if that, maybe she told you all something different, but I don't know if it's permanent that she'll be there. Or if she'll ask somebody else to.
She
with a
said,
Legal background.
she did say that she has, as you say, a couple lawyers on the board and is trying to figure out if there's perhaps a retired lawyer that will donate time for Strawberry Bank rather than paying their lawyer. Which is great. I mean,
Mhm.
if there's a knowledge.
Yeah.
Without having to put that liability onto Strawberry Bank.
Well, I don't think we should be assuming we're going to get donated services for this.
No, not for the,
For the real one.
To represent Strawberry Bank,
To
not
represent-
not the guy you're talking.
yeah,
person.
Yeah. And I have no idea what that costs, but maybe that's worthwhile.
Well, that's what Trevor's looking into.
Yeah.
Because Trevor works for the city.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he's
And
the
he has a
deputy.
very city
city
point
mer-
of view,
Mhm.
which he should. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
well-
good.
And it's good for our purposes too,
Oh, yeah,
because the one unprotected collection is the cities. So we might as well get that well protected in the process.
yeah,
And it has its own special needs.
Right. As do all of us, actually,
yeah,
Right.
of
but
course.
they're more legal needs than ours.
Mandated needs.
Yeah,
And, you know, and they have security needs, in terms of, you know, personal information and stuff like,
right.
so. They can't. They can't delegate some of that. So that's part of it.
So if you had to guess, how long do you think it would be before, you get that movie sorted out?
Oh, yes.
How much time do we have in the?
10 years.
Well, forever. I mean, it's infinite. I was thinking about that this morning, and I was thinking that, you know, we should probably put a goal in that timeline,
You bet.
so that we've got something we're working against. And Trevor has something he's working against.
Yeah,
Is 6 months too soon? From now?
I
I
don't
don't
think so. I think that's a good,
Yeah,
That's
I
good.
think that's real. I think we certainly want to have it done by the end of the year.
yeah,
And so
6 months would be good
6 months,
because
I think is a good
we'd have it
time.
a day or two afterwards to get some other work done.
mhm,
If we could assume that when we meet in, you know, 1 or 2 weeks, we've got a party that's on board with doing the work, then I don't think, it's not gonna take that long to do the work. It's,
Someone who understands the ground.
Right.
Yeah.
But. There were a lot of thoughts from the city's point of view about how to do this. Like, how to do this from a museum point of view, and we're different.
Mhm.
And that the clerk's office is very interested in this,
Too bad.
very interested in being a part of it. Which I thought interesting.
yeah,
So it was a pressure, good pressure of their needs being articulated for once,
Mhm.
and they're different.
They are.
And as you said, their security mandates are different.
Good. Well, let's find the right person and hire them.
we had a conversation at the last FNAM board meeting. I was just kind of giving an update, and one of the points that came up that I wanted to discuss at this meeting and probably at our next meeting is, you know, what's the thought in terms of allocating the cost of this space? Is it gonna be, you know, split up equally amongst the partners? Or is it gonna be split up by square footage? You know, we really haven't talked about that detail yet. But that point came up and I thought it was a good point.
oh, I agree, and I've thought about that, and I don't have an answer, but, maybe square footage is the right way.
Yeah,
I think so, because they're gonna be very different levels.
Play that out for just a second, though. When you say square footage, so let's say I give you. The Athenaeum.
Mhm.
All my written material,
mm-hmm,
I still, you know, you have it, but
Mhm.
it's really for my purposes.
mm-hmm,
It's your square footage, your rent. You pass that on to me. Pass that on to the organization that's giving you, the North Church is giving you their.
wait a minute, run that by me again. So you're talking about your personal
No,
collection?
no, let's use, hypothetically, the North Church, which I think you have their file.
Yeah,
So how would you play that out?
You're
so,
never going to get any of those deposit collections paying rent.
right,
That's my.
They're
point.
all poor.
right,
That's,
Or they're just as soon burn their stuff. So I think that's the Athenaeum's job.
Right.
Is to protect.
Yeah.
So as the Athenaeum's collection grows, that's the question. Are you paying more and more as it grows? Or can you set some sort of a cap? From the beginning? I don't know. That's what.
Then after
But in,
that,
in terms of square footage, let's suppose that we've got 100. Or let's say 100,000 square foot building, just for the sake of numbers, right? And let's say the Athenaeum has 50% of that space. And the other organizations make up the other 50. So do you charge the Athenaeum 50% of the costs of operating that building? Or is it equally spread amongst the partner organizations? So that's that. And, you know, as I think about it, if you, let's say you're building a condominium complex, right? And you've got buildings that are 2,500 square feet, and you've got others that are 4,000 square feet. I think you would assess the condo fee based on square footage. Right?
Which means that in fact, the city will always be the largest tenant.
That's the
Right.
point.
right,
Right.
It is almost, unending.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And very quickly accumulating.
Mhm.
exactly.
and then the other piece of that is that three-dimensional objects take up more space
Mhm.
and archaeological.
Well, that's fairly compact.
Well, and they also, like, what about conditions? Like boxes of archaeology don't need the same conditions that
That's right.
textiles
Boy.
or archives do.
Mhm.
So that's, and
Just don't put
furniture
them in water.
takes
Just
different,
don't put them in water. That's all they want.
yeah. And furniture takes different conditions than
Yeah.
paper and photographs, so.
Well, given the stuff in the way of objects. Furniture, and painting, whatever. That can be pretty broad too.
Yeah.
I mean, they've lived in dreadful conditions for 1,000 years.
It's
not gonna take-
textiles from your collection. that is the
Textiles that always be
biggest-
the biggest
deal.
one, right?
Yeah.
And they're pretty similar, I think, in needs to paper.
I think so too. I think they're the closest.
We
That's
may end up
interesting,
having
yeah.
2 levels of conditions. Normal and conserved,
Mhm.
but
Well,
it should be different.
the collections assessment will tell us that.
That's what we're hoping for.
Mhm.
Well, depending on who you hire.
Right.
Some people will tell you every single thing needs to the nth degree
Mhm.
difference.
And then you could.
We don't want to hire those people.
Yeah, we know.
You could price those spaces
Right.
based on the operating cost of whatever that is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
exactly.
The other intangible that wouldn't get factored, I'm thinking about the Pierce Block Association
Mhm.
is. We pay based on square footage
Mhm.
and not on the value. So
Mhm.
in other words, Starbucks is worth $1 gazillion because it's right on the
First
corner and our apartment is only worth a
3
fraction of that.
Walk up, right?
But we pay the same per square foot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You do?
Does anyone,
Which I think makes sense because what you're paying for is, upkeep and maintenance.
And it is the same cost.
It's the same
to
cost for that. Yeah.
Do your brick every 10 years or 20 years, whether it's the first floor or the top floor.
Are you talking about the appraisal?
I'm just saying that the appraisal has no factor in the condo fee.
Right.
The value of the space, it's just a flat fee based on square footage.
It's different.
As opposed to what you get for it to rent it.
Mhm.
As opposed to appraised value.
Correct.
Which does change each time you
Right.
get an appraised value.
The other
It's
thing
gonna be percentage.
we talked about in that is ownership of the facility, and I think we pretty much agreed that the city should probably own it.
I think that's up in the air, but there are advantages to that.
Yes.
Own it or lease it.
The city would
Own it or lease it.
Own it or lease it,
We
yeah.
we would have a contractual lease with them. That contractual leases gives us protection from political forces.
Right.
Talked about that.
Right,
But if they didn't have a property, then they would lease a property and
And we would sublease.
we would sublease, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. We really did talk about that at some length.
yeah. And then the other piece was staffing and whether the city would staff it or whether the nonprofit organization would staff it.
That's when Trevor cut in with his story about Salem. They started one way and they couldn't do it privately.
Right.
The city took over and took over a good deal of it, but he didn't know the full story. Was gonna come back to us with that, I think.
Yeah.
And the city probably can't designate. Provide access. To their. All of their materials to an outside party,
Right,
so it would have to be somebody from the city clerk's office, I would think.
And they're
It seems
quite,
to me we're gonna need someone to manage this place,
right.
right? And that ought to be a city employee. So they can provide access when appropriate to their stuff, our stuff, whatever. And that person's going to need a good deal of archival knowledge. So it's a new city employee who has
I think,
both management and archival skills with whom we can work as nonprofits. For parts where we need
Mhm.
cooperation to get in, sure things are moved, all that sort of stuff.
So as you're describing it, that's not gonna be an inexpensively funded position.
No,
Never was going to be.
but
It's a
the,
skills.
It's a skill, it's a-
Librarians.
Yeah.
yeah. But again,
Well,
one of the things we've learned is that no matter how big an archive grows, the staff doesn't grow the same way other things,
Right.
grow. So the staff can stay pretty
Mhm.
much the same. Unless, of course, I mean,
depends how public you are.
depends on how public you are, and I think the public facing piece of it could be a responsibility of the organizations. More than,
that's worked out in the lease.
Hmm?
We work it out in the lease.
yeah.
Mhm.
And if we get into if we have a conservation room. Then maybe we hire people to do that, but maybe those are not. Ongoing positions, but are as needed positions. Contract positions or something. I don't know, I mean, I'm just. How much ongoing conservation work do you need to have done? I mean, and the Athenaeum knows best about that, I presume, or well, you all do.
It'd be good to have a conversation with Lorna down at Historic New England.
Mhm.
Once they've got huge storage space, they know these set of issues and the costs.
Mhm.
It might be worthwhile having a little tour down there to talk about, so what's this all cost?
before or after they move back in.
I think we just look at Haverhill and worry about the other stuff somewhere else.
Vince, you mentioned something about the organizations being responsible for the public facing.
Well, I'm
What
just,
do you mean by that? when you
well,
say-
I meant that, programmatic things. It's a space for programs. Is it?
Why?
Hmm?
Why?
Because of the educational component. Which is,
Depends where the building is.
right, that's right,
It could be off in the boonies
It could be.
where nobody else is ever going to go. But that would require,
security,
well, also transportation to get stuff when needed.
Yeah.
To the Athenaeum or to, so you need to leave some room in there to see how much public educational stuff. I think the biggest public educational stuff is getting it digitized. I think you could have somebody full-time on your computer system, just making sure whatever requests are available to somebody. That's certainly the way the New Hampshire Historical Society did it when they raised $2 million a few years ago to start digitizing their collections. That made most public facing stuff that we do for all of us.
Mhm.
So does that qualify for educational if it's?
I don't know.
Of course it does.
I would think so.
That is actually probably what granting agencies are most looking for.
Not programmatic things.
You mentioned last time, Richard, being a museum. Having an exhibit that you qualify for that for purposes of being acceptable to get certain kinds of grants.
I think, the MLS and the National Endowment type money. But they're going very digital these days too, so
Beg your pardon?
I think those granting agencies are looking for digital components of all this stuff as well. So, you really have to pick and choose what it is you need to do. I think if you're right downtown, if you took the old post office building up to McIntyre, then you do public facing stuff.
Yeah.
All the time. Some of it permanent, maybe some of it changing, work for organizations into some sort of organization that can put things out and change them at will. But if you're out in the boonies, you don't really.
Right,
need
no,
that.
I agree. I would love to have it downtown.
I would too.
I just think it should be.
And with the right amount of money, it can be. That's the issue.
Or if it's next to water country, you might have to do more programming.
Okay? Or not. You might have to do far less because no one would ever go.
People find it better.
Well, we only want the right people to find us.
But if it's downtown, you probably have to add staff just because of the more customer public facing.
Well, depends. I think between the various organizations, we probably have the staff to handle it.
Sure.
And frankly, a good volunteer organization for the archives would not be a bad idea. Sort of stuff that Story
Especially-
did with archaeology years back.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You got this team, they're all professional people who can do fabulous stuff, and you're not paying them. Sounds to me like an ideal
I love that.
situation.
I love volunteers.
Yep.
We've got half a dozen people who do nothing but digitize.
And there's a small special collections staff at the library, so it doesn't have to be necessarily
Mhm.
you're creating all of these brand new,
Mhm.
very well-paid positions. Like
Right.
they
Yeah.
do sort of already exist.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Shipped over. Does anyone know the man who owns the federal building?
Sully knows him.
Well, Sully knows him and, other city staff know him.
Well, get a reading on that and go pay him a visit.
It would kind of be nice, like if we should just stop talking about it. Like we've got all of this ideal, but if that's absolutely ludicrous, we should probably recognize that sooner rather than
Yeah,
later.
right, I agree. I mean,
On the other hand, if it's not ludicrous,
But if it's not ludicrous, then we can,
and I
that
wouldn't
would be
get
a wonderful thing
and
to
I
dream
wouldn't get-
about.
frightened off by whatever that might cost. Because frankly, to build a new building anywhere in town is gonna cost the same amount.
Yeah.
Witness the police department.
yeah,
Yeah. And do you think maybe as far as legality goes, that we should determine sooner rather than later if the city papers have to be within the city limits?
That's what they're working on now.
Okay,
Yeah.
like it'd be nice to have some like facts.
Yeah.
Trevor's working right.
Great.
yeah.
That's kind of a big one.
Well, the city will still have space in this building, in the clerk's
We're totally
office,
honest.
all of
That's
that.
Storage rental.
But it's absolutely much
They have what?
not-
Yeah, rental space, a storage unit is.
Mhm.
That's right. I mean, and that's something we talked about, is that the city will still have some space here.
Yes,
And we'll all have our spaces. Well,
Yeah,
You might not, they may be a little damp,
Yeah,
Uh,
but, yeah, there are things that may or may not go into this outfit
right.
right.
for a variety of reasons,
Mhm,
and that's fine.
That's very true.
yeah, and what the city said is that moving the things offsite that they're able to move offsite will create more space for
Right.
the things they need to keep on site,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they won't be moving everything.
Well, if they're already renting storage spaces.
Right.
Presumably,
Mhm.
that can get folded right into this new thing.
they are renting space somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so the whole point is, it could be a.
they don't
cost
talk
saving
about
thing.
where, I don't think.
It's a smart move.
Yeah,
One of the other thoughts that I had, and I don't know where this fits in the process. But at some point. We're gonna wanna do a pro forma. On this organization. We've all been talking about, it's gonna be more cost effective for each organization to. Be part of this collaborative.
Yeah.
But we haven't put
we
that
haven't really,
in paper,
That was
Right.
probably not true.
Yeah, that's definitely not true.
so. I would think at some point, we're gonna wanna. Build out a pro forma and look at the real cost of this. And the real savings, if indeed there are savings.
I'd save that off for a few. You may not know anything. about cost Until a lot of these other pieces are
Mhm,
settled or proposed, whatever.
mhm.
Or they could just change.
They-
There could be a framework, but.
Be a framework,
knowing that the
right,
money is gonna-
Right, yeah,
Cause it takes so long.
right.
I'm trying to take minutes. I'm not good at it.
Well, aren't they? Taping this,
Yeah,
so you can go back and review later on.
yeah, pro forma, I think. We've been saying this all along, but
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
we don't have any hard numbers
yeah,
or even
or even soft numbers.
soft numbers.
At least it's a place to begin.
We have assumptions.
It's fungible.
And who would do that?
Hmm?
And who would do that? Would it be the city? Would, you know, we have resources in the finance department that could do that for us?
Maybe.
Will it come out of the legal process? Not the numbers themselves, but
I wouldn't think so.
Would you?
Be part of it, but it wouldn't be the driving. force.
Yeah, I think,
I mean, the driving force could be to figure out what the numbers are. People realize it's not in their economic interest to do it.
Right. And that's why I'm
And that would,
suggesting.
and that could drive a change in the legal format,
Mhm,
could drive a change in the way you charge for condo fee versus something else.
mhm.
yeah, I think that's a. Put it on the timeline,
When,
3 months.
3 years.
The pro forma? I think we need that sooner rather than later.
You may not like what you see.
Hmm?
You may not like what you see.
Well, that's true. Well, then that's good to know.
Good to know, better to know it now
Yeah.
than later.
it's just gonna be really based on
Well,
wild ass assumptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what we have now,
We'll
wild
start somewhere.
assumptions.
But we also know. At the Athenaeum, we know what our costs are.
Right.
It's expensive.
Very,
It's expensive.
very expensive.
Yeah, I know.
Cheapest rent in town.
we had this conversation before we started talking about what's happening with demolitions in the city. If it's in the city, the acquisition cost is gonna be huge.
Mhm.
It kind of tells you where we're gonna be, frankly.
Mhm.
Without something they could donate, which is not obvious.
Mhm.
And that's the key thing, land acquisition cost.
Well, I think there's two, right? There's the cost of creating this facility, and then there's the operating costs,
Right.
Right.
I think the
which is what I'm
operating,
thinking about for the pro forma,
the operating cost,
the operating costs.
that I think we might be able to pull off if we get it from people feeding into it from the city,
Mm-hmm.
from a T organization, that makes some sense. That could work.
Mhm.
I've got all that data worked out because I do it for the board.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Emma's got all of ours too.
Mm-hmm.
About 280,000 this year
Mm-hmm.
280.
What, Tom?
to run research library.
Does that include, is that just personnel and lights and
Everything.
rent?
Nope, no rent. Because we own the space.
So other than the space, it's everything.
That includes State Street, doesn't it?
I don't think it does.
No?
Should now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you pay for that?
We are paying just over $14 a square foot.
I'm lucky to get it.
Wow, that's not expensive.
Tell me.
In Portsmouth, that's pretty reasonable.
How long do you have it for?
Another, with extensions, we could have it for another 14 years, which is the goal was to get us from where we are
To the next.
to where Vince is gonna take us.
Mhm. Yep, that works.
Hmm.
And I think 14 is not too long a time. It
As
will take a
I've
long
said from the
time to
very
get stuff.
beginning, it only took 20 years to get the library.
Mm.
And everyone loves the library now, so,
Mhm.
you know.
Oh, but it was much hated before it got up.
Oh, it's tough to get to, very tough. That was city money.
What was on the space that the library is on now? What was on?
An armory.
Armory, yeah.
The art-
Start
Well,
building.
it was a historic armory and it was a senior activity center,
Right,
which was pretty gritty,
yeah.
New ones.
but well loved.
True.
It was well loved.
By people who voted a lot
Yeah.
on the once.
Vince, I'm gonna have to get going in another minute
Yeah.
or so.
Okay, the other piece that I wanted to talk about was, what was it? Now I forget.
The RFP.
The RFP
Mhm.
and well, for the
Conservation.
conservation assessment.
So who are we applying to for money for that?
Well, we're,
City.
well, the city would apply for it.
Right, and
Um,
normally IMLS
Mhm.
would do it, but that's not until 2025.
Okay,
No, this is using what's in the capital.
okay, so we're applying against the capital.
Yeah.
Right,
And so what has to happen is that there needs to be a
RFP,
RFP.
get people to apply.
And so that. And then, but I think the way it should work is that the city has to issue it. I mean, we can't issue anything.
Mhm.
But we can make a suggestion about what is included in the RFP.
Mhm.
And, I've never done an RFP for conservation
Tom has.
Tom has.
Yep, no, I will talk with Christine about it on Wednesday, because
Good.
we have a board meeting on Wednesday.
Okay.
So I'll see her then.
Yeah, I think that would be the way to go, is take what you did before and see what we match it up to our needs.
Yeah, and then,
Because the closest this RFP is to what we might do if we were going to
Mhm.
engage or IMLS or something like that. You want it to be consistent.
Right.
Throughout, because we will be going back to those other agencies. And you
Right.
want to be able to say, here's where it came from.
Right, and whoever gets picked should be on their approved
You
list.
got it.
right. So,
They are from Canada.
So if,
What would the RFP be for?
It would be for a conservator to look over the 4 or 5 collections,
Got it.
but only what is slated to go to a new facility, not
Mm.
everything in the John Paul Jones House. It's just what is slated to go in this new facility, and then they would tell you, well, this needs, this type of environment, this type of container, this type of shelving, etc.
There's a guy who Tom Denenberg uses at Shelburne,
Okay.
who's up there, and he's sort of done national stuff.
Mhm.
But I've always found him to be just more practical
Mhm.
than theoretical than
Mhm.
some of those are. It might be worth talking to Tom to see, I forget what his name, but
Okay.
look, look to get some good names to send the RFP out to.
Mhm.
Does that include the city stuff?
If it's not being grant funded, yes, because IMLS wouldn't fund the city portion.
But for this study, it's gotta include the city stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Both at the library and downstairs.
Absolutely.
Wherever,
Yeah.
right.
So what does that mean?
That means that we
What
would,
kind of conditions do you want to keep this stuff?
No. If we've got to put the city in the pot, how does that mean?
it just means that that would have to be funded by the city. If there's a potential that, depending on the timeline of when this goes out, that the other organizations could submit a joint application to IMLS. But that wouldn't come to fruition until early next year.
can, if we were to move forward and fund it with CIP money.
Mhm.
Can you submit for a grant to IMLS to be reimbursed?
I don't think that works that way.
Never.
I'm gonna talk to Suzanne about
Mhm.
what the CIP money actually can cover.
That's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah. And
Good. He's the one
That
who
was
talks.
just my point is that the report that this consultant would do has to be formatted in a way as if it were funded by the IMLS, because we will be going back to NEH and IMLS for implementation money.
Yeah, you want to get it done to the standards that everybody else is going to require anyway.
Right.
Mhm.
What do you guess that would cost?
Not much. It's probably, well, the cities would be the largest, so that would be the most expensive. That'll probably be 10 grand, and then everybody else is probably 4 or 5.
So,
And yours will freak them out.
They'll be like, what? Why would you want to say this?
In the RFP, must own galoshes.
Yeah.
yeah, the city.
And didn't you say that it's the staff that actually does most of the work, like
Yes.
gathering all the information?
Yes, because that person is not gonna have any idea what it is that you want to store on
Right.
site.
Right.
So
So-
someone from this, there needs to be someone from the city who is that person.
Yeah,
And it's probably.
and that, I mean, that would be Kelly and Abby
Oh, Abby, yeah.
And Christine.
and Christine.
Mhm.
Yes, that's right. Um, one more thing, very quickly. People look at the minutes. We have to vote on approving the minutes from last,
Whatever they were, I moved them.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
What a group.
Chuck, this is where you're supposed to say, was that it?
Not yet. Not yet. He has more to say, I can.
No,
tell.
I don't. I thought you were gonna say something. Thought you were just gonna not need to lead.
Um,
Move adjournment?
we can adjourn, I guess, unless there's any other discussion. I don't want to hang around here having discussion after the,
So moved.
Aye.
Great.
second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Vince.
recording.
Good job. See you tomorrow.
Yes, I will.
Yeah.
It's quick and easy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Potential acquisition of
Thank you.
Actually,
prisoner.
I mean, this is amorphous. I mean,
I know, it really is.
this is really pretty squishy stuff.
that was before, what's his name was.
Yeah.
Running that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be, should be pretty, all.
Well, all it is it's a list of
You too, Chuck.
who the prisoner is, where they're.
How's your
from,
house coming?
what it is.